Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the In the Saddle podcast. My name is Chris Loader, and I am joined by our panel, Katie Midwinter and Paul Callaghan, as we'll be previewing all the Grade 1s at Aintree across the next few days, including the big one as well, the Grand National. We'll be giving our selections for that race a little bit later on. But before we get into things, let's see how everyone is. Paul, how are things with you? Not been on the podcast for a while, but you looking forward to Aintree this week?
Absolutely looking forward to it. Can't wait, Chris. It's been a while, been kept busy, so been kept out of trouble, so that's good. But really looking forward to Aintree. I absolutely love it. I think it's a close one, but I think I marginally just prefer Aintree now to Cheltenham. Real feel good factor and a fun factor with Aintree, whereas Cheltenham's a little bit more serious, isn't it?
Yeah, I just think the build up goes on for a long time, doesn't it, with Cheltenham? And I just think you've kind of, after when the previous circuit comes down, you're just kind of like, get on with it, Whereas Aintree, there isn't so much of a build up to it. It's kind of only the week before you think, oh, Aintree's just around the corner, and then there's less anticipation, if that makes sense. So it kind of comes to you fresh. So I'm really looking forward to it as well. How about you, Katie? Are all the previews done?
No, not yet, but getting there. I'm the same though. I think it feels more relaxed now going into Aintree, that you're able to enjoy it a little bit more, because Cheltenham there's so much pressure surrounding the whole week there. Whilst it's the pinnacle of the sport and it's really enjoyable, it is quite stressful as well, the 4 days and all the build up to it and the anticipation as well. So this is just a bit more relaxed and a bit more fun, and the racing, because of everything that's gone on, the weather and the breaks between the big meetings as well. Nicky Henderson missing Cheltenham with a lot of his big runners. We're getting so much quality here at Aintree this year as well, which is great. And I really enjoyed it when I went last year. I went the first 2 days. It's just really fun, and there's top quality racing too. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, got some really good racing to get stuck into. Maybe not the biggest fields we're ever going to see, but as you say, it is quality over quantity here. And the first race we're going to look at, Dan, is on the Thursday. It's the 145. It's a Close Brothers Manifesto Novices Chase. It's a Grade 1, only the 5 runners, but we've got a little rematch here between Grey Dawning and Ginny's Destiny. Grey Dawning is your favourite at even money. We've then got Ilia Tom at 7-2, Ginny's Destiny at 4s, Blow Your Wad 14s, and Kennel Harry the outside at 33-1. Paul, I'll come to you here first. Grey Dawning was a very impressive winner, I thought, in the Turners. Do we think he'll confirm the form here with Ginny's Destiny?
Yeah, I think he will. I thought he was a bit more valued than the winning distance suggests. He ran out a 2 lengths winner over Ginny's Destiny when last seen. He's been kept relatively fresh. It's only his second start since the 1st of January, so connections probably had Cheltenham and Aintree in mind. I think he's a horse that probably kept a little bit up his sleeve. I know Cheltenham has to have left some bit of a mark on him, but I think he will have recovered, and I think he takes the beat, and I think he'll confirm that forward with Ginny's Destiny. Eli Tom, third one last seen, and was a winner of the Arkle at the Dublin Racing Festival the time before. I didn't think that was the strongest of runs. I thought Marine Nationale, I stood at the last fence that day at Leopardstown, and Marine Nationale wasn't going much further than a walk past me, and I was quite surprised how close Marine Nationale was to the winner. I know he's well beat in the end, but literally I thought he would have walked past the line. So I don't think that was the strongest of runs. I think if Grey Dawning is none the worse from that run at Cheltenham, I think even money could, I hope, look at a bit of value here.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with you. He's probably maybe a little bit short for me to back at even money, but I do think he's the most likely winner of the race. Probably the shortest he wants as well. I think he'll probably want 3 miles in time, but you're going to need to stay. We know he's got the proven stamina, and for me, I think he'll win this. How about you, Katie?
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement as well. I can't see past Grey Dawning, and even money could look a bit of value. He's got the beating of Ginny's Destiny, and I thought he would have beaten Ginny's Destiny early in the season as well. When he made that bad mistake at the second last at Cheltenham, and then just lost his momentum and couldn't really get back up to top speed, but was staying on all the time. I think some people were of the opinion that Ginny's Destiny would have won anyway, but I definitely think Grey Dawning would have got up on before the line, and he showed last time at Cheltenham that he is superior to Ginny's Destiny. He's just got a bit more class up his sleeve. I also think that this trip is perfect for him. He stays well enough over 3 miles, but I just think the 2.5, that intermediate trip, is just perfect for him. I think it's his optimum, and the conditions as well are going to really suit and help bring that stamina into play too. Illita Toms, I thought ran well at Leopardstown, but then the form is questionable because Marie National didn't run his race, and then we saw Founder 50 and Illita Toms being well beaten by Gaelic Warrior in the Arkle. So Illita Toms, Founder 50, they're not quite up to the top level of those 2 mile chasers. I'm not sure the step up and trip is really going to suit Illita Toms either, because I've got that Limerick race over the Christmas period behind Gaelic Warrior in my mind when he was just well beaten by his stablemate on that occasion. I'm not convinced that the step up and trip or the softer ground is going to help either, because he's quite a small horse and it does make it tough at times to be jumping those big fences. I can't see him beating Grey Dawn in a horse of his quality. I think Colonel Harry has a lot to find as well, and Blow Your Wad was impressive at Kempton, but I think he's a horse that prefers going right-handed, so I'm not sure exactly how much this is really going to suit him, and he's got plenty to find as well. So I can't fancy any of the others, and that makes me even more confident that Grey Dawning is going to win.
Okay, so we're all in agreement then. Grey Dawning might get punters off to a winning start at Aintree. The next race we're going to focus on is still on Thursday, it's the 2:20. It's the Boodles Anniversary 4-year-old juvenile hurdle, a Grade 1, and Sagino is your favourite at 5-6. Odds on, we've then got Cargeese at 3-1, Caliph de Burley at 7s, Nürburgring 10s, Interlotto 20s, and Dirty Den, the outsider, at 150-1. Katie, Sagino, obviously we're going to be talking a little bit about this probably over some of the races on the podcast. Obviously, he missed Cheltenham. The yard haven't been firing on all cylinders. They had to pull obviously a lot of runners out at Cheltenham. Sergino obviously was probably, after Constitution Hill, 7 Barrage's best chance of a winner at the Cheltenham Festival. We clearly know he's a very good horse, but odds on here on what's been going on with the yard. Could you really be backing him here?
I wouldn't be jumping to oppose him, because I think he's going to probably end up being the best horse out of these 6. So I think he's the most likely winner. There's not that much enticement for an each way bet either, because there's only 6 runners. But one that has interested me from an each way angle, or maybe without the favourite angle, is Interlotto for Joseph O'Brien. I just think the price is huge at 20-1. I think it doesn't reflect his ability at all. He's still unexposed at this level. I know he was well beaten at the DRF behind Kagisi, but I think that it was a funny race that day. I just feel like he's worth another chance at that level. He's worth forgiving that one run. He's beaten Lucy Wang. He beat Carl de Tourlaise. It isn't bad form. And I just think there could be more to come from him. He's quite a flashy type. He's a really nice looking chestnut horse, and I've been really taken by him in his wins this season. So I'd like to stick with him and hope that he can maybe outrun his odds. I just think he looks the value in the field. Nürburgring is another, his stablemate too, that could run well. He had too much to do in the Triumph. He was too far back to have any impact on the race in the end. I think he's better than that, so I'd give him another chance as well. But Sergino is probably the likeliest winner. Hagis is going to be dangerous too, but I wonder if Interlotto can maybe be the surprise package in here.
Okay, Interlotto, good mention there from Katie if you're looking for maybe a little bit of value. How about you, Paul?
I think we're going to see some shock results over the course of the 3 days, but I think if Sergino turns up fit and healthy, I don't think this is going to be one of them. I think he's a proper horse. Like he was a good winner on stable and UK debut at Kempton back in December. I thought Nico tried to give him maybe an educational ride on that occasion. He was pretty much unable to do so. Like I think he tried to drop in. I think he was second last or near the back, walking to the tapes. And by the time they'd gone maybe 2 or 3 furlongs, he was sat second or third. And absolutely, he was taking a good strong hold. And he found like he was very good off the in the straight and quickened for home at Kempton that day. He quickened up nicely and ran about in the closing stages, and then he absolutely bolted up in a trial for the Triumph Hurdle at Cheltenham back in January. He beat Bordet Road by 10 lengths. If he's fit and healthy, I think it'll take a sniper to take him out. He wins this. Not a race I'll be betting, but I would love to see Sergino fit, healthy, and blow this field away.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you both said. I do think Sergino is probably the best horse in the race, but it's just, is he going to be all A1? You'd like to think he would be, with Nicky Henderson taking a chance with him. And they did have a winner as well at Ludlow last week, so maybe the Yard are coming back into a little bit of
I'm
form.
not sure there was anything wrong with him at the time of Cheltenham. I think it was more precautionary than anything, because apparently he's stabled at a different part of the yard than some of the older horses, if I'm right in saying that. So I don't think there was necessarily a physical issue with him, but obviously there was a problem at the yard at the time.
What I heard was from someone I know at the yard that they were just protecting more of the Grade 1 horses, and they were happy to let the handicappers take their chance. I think, like obviously, like the likes of Sergino, they wanted to not run him in case there was something wrong with the yard, or like if there was something wrong with him on the day because of what had been going on in the yard. So yeah, there might not have been anything wrong with him, but like I say, you just can't trust it at the prices. I think 5 to 6. I do think Cargese is a little bit underrated. I think. I mean, she's consistent and has done nothing wrong. She won the Spring Juvenile Hurdle at Leopardstown and then ran a cracking race, I thought, in the Triumph. Just got outstayed by Margeborough, who was been a bit of a talking horse from Willie Mullins' yard. They expect a lot of good things from him in the future, and I just think he outstayed her that day. But I think for this season anyway, for the here and now, I do think she's a worthy adversary to Sergino. She gets a fillies allowance as well, so it means she's actually quite well off at the weights. With the £7 she's getting, there's only £4 between them on the official rating, so that's something maybe to take into consideration. She won't mind the ground as well. She's got plenty of form with juice in it. I just think she's going to run a good race. So I think she'll definitely put it up to Sergino, and if there are any chinks in his armour, he's really going to have to pull out of the bag. But I do think Cargese has been a little bit underrated, and I think she'll go well here, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if she did get ahead in front. But yeah, so Gino, if he was to win, it would be definitely a good indication, obviously, with the yard form of 7 Barrows, and it would give me a bit more confidence as well, maybe selecting some of his horses across the next couple of days. So that's our thoughts then on the Juvenile Hurdle. We're now going to move on to the 255. The feature race on day 1. It's the William Hill Bowl Chase. We've got 7 runners going to post over the 3 mile 1 furlong trip. Jerry Colomb is your favourite at 7 to 4. We've then got Shishkin next in at 11 to 4. Corbett's Cross, an interesting runner at 7 to 2. Brave Man's Game at 10s. Ahoy Senor 14s. Gentleman's Game is 28s. And Thunder Rock, the outsider, at 33 to 1. Paul, we'll come to you here first. I think this is a quite good renewal of this race. There's definitely a case that can be made for most of them on some kind of form lines. What did you think of the race overall?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a cracker. As you said, I'd be more inclined to have a bet in this race now than I was in our previous contest that we spoke on Sergino's race. For me, I've gone with Shishkin. Just gets a tentative nod here. He was last seen taking the Denman Chase at Newbury back in February. Was in the process of running a cracker and the King George until stumbling and depositing Nico de Bonneville on the landing side of 2 out in the King George the time before that. Like I said, fitness, health wise or whatever has to be taken on trust, as does his behaviour. I think if he behaves himself here, I think he'll have a big say. It could be slow motion stuff at the end of this 3 mile and 1 contest. So Shishkin, he was 3 to 1 when I was having a look at this earlier. He's now just been nibbled at into 11 to 4. Of the others, Jerry Colomb, he's had a couple of hard races. Like he's been running well. He's a course and distance winner. He was a good winner on seasonal reappearance at Down Royal, just getting the better of Envoy LN. But even on that occasion, it was a hard race at Down Royal. He was no match for Galopin Des Champs at Leopardstown over the Christmas period, and then had a tough race when he got it a little closer to Galopin Des Champs in the Gold Cup in last season. So there are 3 hard runs there for the current favourite at 7 to 4. Corbett's Cross, I'm going to swear he had a hard enough race, I'd say, just at Cheltenham. I think the ground was quite tested on that day when he won at the festival. And Brave Man's Game, I don't think it's going to be good enough. High Senior, if he put his best foot forward, could well outrun his odds at 14-1. And Gentleman's Game, I think, is a horse that I like a lot. He got me out of trouble at Leopardstown a couple of seasons back over fences. Good winner to Charlie Hall, but he had a tough race in the Gold Cup when last seen. 28-1. I just wouldn't be touching Gentleman's Game. So maybe a High Senior 14-1. I do fancy him. He could, if he puts his best foot forward, could outrun those odds. But if I'm having a bet here, I'm with Shishkin.
Okay, Paul's trusting with Nicky Henderson that Shishkin is going to defend his crown. How about you, Katie? You sticking with one of your favourites?
Yeah, I just love Shishkin. He's probably my favourite horse in training at the moment. I know a lot of people say that he's quirky and he misbehaves and that kind of thing. I don't really agree with that narrative too much. I know he isn't necessarily at the best of his game every time, but I don't think he's necessarily badly behaved and as quirky as people make out. I know he refused to race early in the season at Ascot, but we'll put that down to the cheek pieces perhaps and the fact that he maybe just wasn't up for it on that day. I think even when he runs below par, he still runs well enough. If you look at last spring, when he ran in the Ryanair chase behind NYLN, he was being niggled along by Nico from the outset. He was never too comfortable, never was able to get into a rhythm, and he didn't jump with much fluency, but he was still able to get within 3 lengths of NYLN, who's a really good horse on his day. And I thought that was a testament to him as a horse and his character too, because he really digs in and battles hard. Again, when he was behind Ahoy Senior in this race last year, he had a lot to make up on him. And Ahoy Senior perhaps was tiring a little bit. But Shishkin, again, in that race, he raced a bit lazily, didn't get into a jumping rhythm, and really had to be asked for maximum effort to get past Ahoy Senior, which he did in the end. I just think, looking at his run in the King George, it was more like the Shishkin of old that was just jumping with ease at the front, got into a perfect rhythm and was travelling beautifully before that unfortunate unseat of Nico de Boinville. And I think if he runs to that level again, he's going to take all of the beating here. I think Jerry Colomb is too short. You can see he's drifted a little bit now out from 6-4 to 7-4. But I think Shishkin is great value at 11-4. I think he's a class of the field. I think there are question marks about the others. Jerry Colomb's had a hard race in the Gold Cup, as Paul mentioned. Hoy Senior is probably the other one for me that would interest me the most each way. I think 14-1 is a big price, but I've been sticking with him all season, and it's becoming difficult to stick with now because he just hasn't been on song. I thought he ran well in the Cotswold Chase for a long way when the stirrup snapped. Thought it was a much better jumping performance from him. So I'd give him a squeak each way, but I'd be firmly in the camp of Shishkin. He's a fantastic horse, and I think he's underrated with many racing fans. I don't think he often gets the credit he deserves. It's a shame he had to miss Cheltenham, but I think he comes into this fresh and he should take all of the beating.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking along similar lines to you here. I'm kind of thinking it could be a bit of a rematch between last year's race, Shishkin and Ahoy Senior. I just personally can't put up Shishkin because of the Nicky Henderson form. I just want to see some of his horses run well before I feel like I can get stuck into them. But I think if he is on song, he is definitely the best horse in the race. I can't have Jerry Colomb. I think he's had, like Paul said, a couple of hard races. And also as well, I was looking at Gordon Elliott's record the last couple of weeks, and a lot of his horses are running below form. So I don't know. I'm not really keen on his chances. Corbett's Cross is an interesting runner here, but again, I'm not quite sure on the form of that National Hunt Chase. I think it was kind of a substandard renewal, and I don't think he beat anything of great note, even though he couldn't have done much more. Ahoy Senior is the one I keep coming back to at the prices. I think 14-1 with, there are a couple of firms offering 3 places on the race. I think that is a good each way bet because this is his meeting, this is his time of year. I thought he ran a cracking race last year just to get pipped in the closing stages by Shishkin, who would just stay all day in my opinion. And I think we could get a similar kind of situation here, but I think if we're looking at a horse that represents a bit of value, it is a Hoy Senior. I think he'll get maybe an easy lead on the front end of things. There's not too many horses that like to go forward, and if he does get an unpestered time of things, he just might be able to grind some of these into submission, and it could be Shishkin chasing them home and picking up pieces. I do see it being a very similar race to last year, so a Hoy Senior for me, and I could see Shishkin running well as well if he is on song. So that was the way I was thinking. We're now going to move on to the next race we're going to look at, which is the 3:30. It's the William Hill Aintree Hurdle, over 2.5 miles. This Grade 1 contest. Bob Ollinger is your favourite, along with Empire Pasa, both fighting it out for favouritism. We then got Langadan next in at 10s, Lucia 11s, Nemean Lion 14s, Marie's Rock 16s, Mahon's Glory 80s, and Beacon Edge Outsider at 100 to 1. Katie, I'll come to you here first. I know there's some of your old favourites in here again. How did you see this race?
Yeah, I've got a lot of old favourites, haven't I? I think Bob Ollinger is the one to beat in here. I think he should be favourite. The Irish champion hurdle form, he beat Imperial Pass fairly comfortably when they were both behind Stateman. I do think on that occasion, though, Imperial Pass, he tried to make the run in and it didn't work for him. So a change of tactics here could see him finish closer to Bob Ollinger, and this trip is going to suit him better, I'd say, as well. But I think this is Bob Ollinger's optimum trip, and he's been more reliable this season. So I just think he's more trustworthy, and he's shown that he is the better horse at this moment in time. Imperial Pass has the potential to be better in future, and this could be a good opportunity for him to really show what he can do now in open company. Because if you look through his form, he's been beaten by Stateman at Leopardstown over. Sorry about that. Beaten by, yeah, that's my dog. Beaten by Stateman at Leopardstown over Christmas. Beaten a length by Tiupu the time before that. That form doesn't look too bad, but I just favour Bob Ollinger between the two of them. Each way, I'd go for Lucia, who actually surprised me in the champion hurdle the last time. She put in a career best performance on ground that was much softer than ideal for her. Usually she's been a mare that needs better ground to be seen to her best, but the way that she was able to perform on that day, beating the likes of Zarek the Brave, Nemean Lion, who I expected more from, and I think did run below par on that occasion, but the fact that she was only a couple of lengths behind Irish Point on heavy ground, I think it really showed the level that she can be at when she's at her best. So I think she's a good each way selection. Luckily, there's 8 runners in here, so there's no problem with getting 3 places. I'd also give a shout to Nemean Lion, who I think can improve for his run in the champion hurdle. As I said, I think he was below par on that occasion, but he'll love the soft ground. He's a real tough horse. He could be just staying on towards the finish, but my main selection would be Bob Ollinger.
Okay, how about you, Paul? Are you in agreement, Bob Ollinger?
No, I've gone with Imperial Pass. Just about now. I know I was at Navan the day that Bob Ollinger, when he won the Lismullen, and Tally Navan was on wheels that day when he came to hit the front, like the crowd just went nuts. Like, so it was great to see. From a betting perspective, though, I think Imperial Pass, I know, as Katie mentioned, was behind Bob Ollinger. Was only beaten 5 lengths by Bob when they met in the Irish Champion Hurdle back in February, and was no match for Stateman in the Grade 1 Matheson Hurdle at Leopardstown the time before that. Both of those runs were over 2 miles. I know Imperial Pass was a winner over 2 miles. He won the Grade 2 Moscow Flyer Novice Hurdle at Punchestown, albeit that was on testing ground last season. But I thought he was very good in the Ballymore over 2 miles and 3 at Cheltenham last season. I think 2.5 mile here will suit. I think connections, as Katie mentioned, when in the Irish Champion Hurdle they tried to make the run, and I don't think that just played to his strengths. I think if he's ridden handy with a lead, close enough to the pace, but get a lead for as long as possible over this 2.5 mile trip, I think we'll see Imperial Pass in better light here. So he gets the tentative nod.
Okay, so it's 1 vote for Bob Ollinger and 1 vote for Imperial Pass. I'm going to make it 2-1 to Bob Ollinger. I think he's got a very good chance in here. Similar enough, like Imperial Pass, they've both been, it looks like, kept fresh for this race. But I just go back to the Railkill hurdle at Cheltenham. Even though it was only a small runner race, I think it was actually quite a strong renewal. You only had 4 runners in that race, but you had Marie's Rock win on her next start, and then you had Brewing Up a Storm, who subsequently won at Ferryhouse the other week, and strong leader in that race as well. I think he's not a bad horse. So I do think that that's probably the best form on offer in here this season. And I just think over this trip, stepping back up in trip, I think it will really suit Bob Olinger. Henry de Bromhead's team are in pretty good form coming into this. Imperial Pass, to me, I just think he's a horse that's a bit of an enigma at the moment. I haven't been really happy with him at any point this season. Maybe if he bounced back to that form from last season at the Cheltenham Festival, he'd have a chance. But at 7-4, I'd rather side with Bob Olinger, who's been a bit more like it this season from what we know he could do in the past. So I'm going to stay here with Bob Olinger. But I do think the Me and Lion, like Katie mentioned, I think he's probably the each way horse in this race. I think Kerry Lee probably shouldn't have run him in the Champion Hurdle last time out. I probably would have actually liked to see him going the stairs, because he was entered in that, and they were at one point kind of considering going down that route. I think he's a horse that has untapped potential over staying distances. He's got plenty of gears, but I think his limitations have been exposed over 2 miles, and I think he's definitely worth a go back up in trip. I think he'll get it no problem at all. If you go back through some of his form earlier in the season, he actually ran a good race at Kempton in the Lanzarote hurdle, where he was pretty much in the top weight in the race. So he's definitely a horse that I think has a lot more to offer. He doesn't mind heavy ground. I think Cheltenham as well isn't his track, and I think the flatter nature at Aintree will be up his street more. So I could definitely see him maybe sneaking into third each way, around about 14-1. I don't think he's a bad price there. So yeah, I'm with Bob Olinger, and I think if you want an each way alternative, I think the Me and Line could go well. So that's our thoughts then on the Thursday races. We're now going to move on to Friday, where we've got some more Grade 1 action we're going to be previewing. The first race on Friday is the 145. It's a Hutton Asphalt Franny Blessenhasset Memorial Mildmay Novices Chase, over 3 miles 1 furlong. I Know the Way You're Thinking is favourite at 11-4. We've then got Shanty Classico at 15-4, Iroka at 4-1, Heartwood 6-1, Broadway Boy 8s, Giovinco 9s, and that is the field. Paul, I'll come to you here first. This is quite a tricky race to work out. You've got a few horses in here coming from the handicap route. You've got some that are coming from the graded route. Even though we might not have an absolute superstar in here, it's definitely an interesting race to work out, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating. And the one I've come down on is Heartwood, who's been kept relatively fresh. He's only had the 4 starts over fences. I thought he ran out a good winner at Leopardstown. That was a Grade 3 company when last seen. He was left clear, albeit by a faller at the last. But like when those fancy towards the top of the market there, I just think the selection Heartwood, he's bypassed Cheltenham, comes here a fresh horse, and was it around about the 10-1 mark, now as the best priced at 6-1. Like I said, comes here a fresh horse, and I think that he represents a bit of value here. So Heartwood gets the nod from me.
Okay, Heartwood for Paul. How about you, Katie?
Yeah, I really like Paul's selections today. I'm in complete agreement once again. He's the one that just was the most interesting in the field for me. He's up £12 from his win in the handicap at the DRF. He's now on a mark of 148. That should mean that he's going to be competitive in this field. He's officially rated 153 by the British handicapper. And I just think there could be more to come from him. He's unexposed at this level. He was an easy winner at Leopardstown, and you had I Know the Way You're Thinking back in 9th on that occasion. Now maybe that wasn't really his day, and he has obviously run well since, and he looked well in when winning the Kim Muir Cheltenham last month. But I just think Heartwood, the fact, as Paul mentioned, that he didn't go to Cheltenham, he's coming into the race fresh. A few of these, well, all of them ran at Cheltenham, the rest of them, apart from Broadway Boy. I just think Heartwood, with that freshness on his side, he could be the surprise package in here. And the market is speaking in favour of him too, because he was much bigger this morning, as short as 4-1 in places now. So he'd be the one I'd go for.
Okay, a bit of love then for Hartwood. I think this is a really tricky race. I was kind of coming down on the side of the two JP horses. I'm probably just going to side with I Know the Way You're Thinking. The way he won the Kim Muir that day, I was really taken with him. I didn't have a penny on, of course, but there's just a way that he went through the race and he won it with such ease. Now, again, he's stepping out of handicap company into a grade one. It's not going to be easy, but the way he did it, I was just really impressed. You've seen the backside a couple of times of Gaelic Warrior. I just think he's a horse that wants 3 miles, and now we know he's capable of winning over it very impressively. We're going to see him here more often than not. I just think he's a horse that, with a bit of cut in the ground over this distance, I think he's going to love it. Maybe not the best jumper in the world, but I do think he's got a very good chance. I wouldn't even write for Rocco. He's a horse that I like after he won the Martin Pipe for me last year. Thought he was going to be a really smart novice chaser this year for Green on Guerrero when he won at Warwick. Obviously, he picked up a little bit of an injury, and at one point they thought they weren't going to get him back this season. He ran last time out behind Grey Dawning, hasn't been to the World too many times, and if you actually go back and watch the replay, he actually was staying on. So I do think that he probably wants 3 miles. So for me, I think he'll run a big race, and Green on Guerrero's yard are flying at the moment. They're having plenty of winners, and with the yard going great guns, I do think he's going to put up a bold bid. So they're the kind of two I was swaying towards, but I'd probably just go with I Know the Way You're Thinking. I was just really taken with the way he won at Cheltenham that day, and I'm going to side with him. But so yeah, intriguing race, and yeah, we could definitely see some superstars in the future in there. We're now going to move on to the 255 for the Trusted Trader Top Novices Hurdle. Mystical Power is your favourite at 2-1. We've then got Firefox at 100-30, Dysart Enos at 5s, Mr. Gift 10s, Golden Ace 12s. Bigger are the rest. Katie, I'll come to you first. Mystical Power, I know, is a horse you've got a lot of time for. You're going to be siding with him here?
Yeah, definitely. I thought his run in the Supreme was very impressive on ground that was probably softer than ideal. Looking at his pedigree being by Galileo out of Any Power, he was expected to have a lot of quality, but you'd think that maybe better ground he'd be seen to best effect, because he should have plenty of speed being by Galileo, and he has shown that on a sounder surface in his career so far. But I thought he was really impressive. I think he just got outstayed by Slade Steele, whose best trip in my eyes is over 2.5, but obviously they swerved the Bearing Bingham to avoid Ballyburn, which was definitely the correct decision, and stamina really came to the fore over the 2 mile trip in the Supreme on that ground at Cheltenham. But I think Mystical Power comes into the race with the best form here, based on that Supreme performance, and although there's a few good horses up against him and it should prove to be a good race, I do think Mystical Power is good enough to have the beating of the rest of them.
Okay, Mystical Power it is for Katie. We can make it another vote for Mystical Power, Paul?
No, we're not. I am really looking forward to seeing how Dysart Enos gets on, Chris. I thought she's 3 from 3 over hurdles. She did win the Mayor's Bumper at Aintree last year, but she ran out a very easy winner at Doncaster last time out. It is a big jump into Grade 1 company here, but maybe not the strongest. And like I said, she was a good winner at Donny last time out. She jumped and travelled strongly. When she hit the front, she had a good look about. So, and then, she's shaken up a bit without having to get too serious on top. She looked as if there was plenty still left under the bonnet. I think she's a fascinating runner. I think she'll go a faster gallop here, which should suit. And I think 5-1. I think she'll give you a good run for your money here. So Dysart Enos for me is my selection. Quite disappointed with Firefox this season. I was working at Fairyhouse on the first day of the Winter Festival when he beat Ballyburn, and it was a cracking race. And at that stage of the season, he looked a lot sharper than Ballyburn. Ballyburn was jump rusty, 2 miles looked on the sharp side for him and whatnot. But there was a lot of buzz around Firefox in the winner's enclosure after, and Cheltenham was being touted and whatnot. So quite disappointed. I don't know if there was anything amiss. He was quite disappointing in the Lawlers and Ace, and was well held when last seen. So I would like to see 130 is quite short as well for him. I wouldn't be backing him, but I'd like to see him put a better foot forward than he's shown on his last couple of starts, and show some of that what he showed at Fairyhouse over the Winter Festival. But win selection for me here, Dysart Enos.
Okay, Dysart Enos it is. For Paul, I'm kind of in agreement with Mystical Power as probably the most likely winner. But I am going to have to put up Golden Ace here. She's a horse that I've got a lot of time for. I was really keen on her chances at the Cheltenham Festival, and she came in and did the job. And I just felt people weren't giving her enough credit that day. Everyone was looking towards the Irish horses and Dysart Enos as well. Going into the race, they were kind of the big three, Jade de Grugy and Bright Days Ahead. But I've just been really impressed by the way Golden Ace have been doing it at Taunton, and there was a glint in Jeremy Scott's eye, and I just really like the way she won at Cheltenham in the Mayor's Novice. She just showed so many gears, and even that form has started to work out okay. Jade de Grugy went on to win the Grade 1 Mayor's race, so I think she's got a lot going for her here. She gets the £7 as well. The Mayor's Allowance. It is obviously going to be a tougher test taking on the Geldings, but she has run against some decent Geldings. She beat Lucky Place, who ran a good race in the Coral Cup for Nicky Henderson, and he had some good form as well with some other decent novices in the UK. So there are quite a good few form lines for her, and around about 12-1, I think she's my idea of an each way bet in the race. We've currently got the 8 runners, so 3 places available. I'll probably go for her each way, but if you wanted a horse that I think is probably the most likely winner, I do think it's Mystical Power. I think, as Katie made the case for him, by any power, better things expected of him. Good run last time out in the Supreme, probably just got outstayed. I think this is an easier assignment for him, and it's the way I was thinking. So that's our thoughts then on the 2:55 on Friday. We then move on to the next race, which is the 3:30. It's the My Pension Expert Melling Chase, a Grade 1, and John Bon is your favourite at 5-2. We've then got Protector out next in the betting at 3-1, Pick Dory 10-3, Envoy Len 11-2, Conflated 16s, Easy Game 18-1, and Manila Drama the outsider at 66-1. Paul, I'll come to you here first. This is again, a very good race. John Bond stepping up in trip. Protectorat, good winner of the Ryanair last time out. Pick Dory won this race last year. All kinds of angles, but which way were you thinking?
Yeah, I would pick Dory. As you said, it's an absolute belter here, but Pick Dory for me. Best price 130. Only had the 3 starts this season. Like you said, he was a good winner of this race last year. He's had 3 starts this season that has yielded 2 victories at Ascot, and he was a good second behind Banbridge in between those victories at Ascot and Kempton, where it was reported after that he was just hanging at a tendency to lug out to his left at Kempton. But I thought he was a very good winner at Ascot last time out. He got the better of L'Homme Presse, and Connections will be making plenty use of Pick Dory. I expect him to be cherry ripe for this. It's a cracking race, but it's Pick Dory for me, Chris.
Yeah, this is definitely a Pick Dory Spring Gold Cup, as it were. He's been completely laid out for the race, and I can definitely see him going well. How about you, Katie?
I think it's a great race and a tricky one to predict. John Bon, I'd say, is the worthy favourite, and all being well with him, and if he jumps well, I think he's going to be tough to beat. But I keep looking at Conflated 16-1, and I think it's a huge price for him. I was with him in the Ryanair chase. I thought he ran well enough, but cheap pieces are tried this occasion. That could just maybe help him see out his races a little bit better. I think over this shorter trip, he's been getting quite tired over 3 miles plus towards the end of his races. He looked like that in the bowl last year, and gone on a couple of occasions this year as well when he's been running against Gallopin Deschamps and the likes. So I think this drop back in trip, it does suit him, especially on testing ground, because it can allow him to really use his stamina to great effect. I just think he's too big at 16-1. So looking at the current market, I'd probably just side with Conflated, but I will give a positive mention to Envoy Len, who does take a bit of value at 11-2 as well. I think he's a better horse than Pick Dory, and I think he could serve it up to John Bon on his day. Soft ground, I've never thought it's been ideal for him, but then again, he ran very well in the Ryanair chase the last time behind Protectorat, won the Ryanair on soft enough ground the year before as well. So maybe he copes well enough for it. And also he stays further, so he's one that can really use his stamina. So I'd be with Conflated and Royal Land at the prices.
Okay, I was kind of thinking along the lines of Paul here with Pick Dory. I just like the fact he's had a bit of a fresher campaign than some of these, especially gone to Cheltenham. And I think if they do make the most of him, as Paul said, he could just get into a good rhythm. Originally, you think that a lot of his best form has come on good ground, but he actually won this race last year when it was officially described as soft. And I watched back the race replay last year, and he seemed to go through it absolutely fine. So I do think that he's got a very good chance. Maybe the Nichols team haven't been firing on all cylinders of late. I think they've been a little bit quiet, but I'm sure they'll go well at Aintree, and this definitely is probably one of their better chances. So I'll probably just side with Pick Dory. We're now going to move on to the 440. It's the Cavani Sartorial Menswear Sefton Novices Hurdle Grade 1 contest. The Jukebox Man is your favourite at 7-2. We then got Dancing City at 4-1. Reed and Tommy Wrong at 4. Shanna Bob at 9-2. Croke Park 8s. Bigger are the rest. Katie, I'll come to you here first. The Jukebox Man. Oh, that's I still haven't got over that one. I was quite keen on his chances going into the Albert Bartlett, and I thought we had it in the bag even up to the last 50 yards. But do we think he'll get his just desserts here?
Well, it'd be nice if he did, because he was just desperately unlucky in the Albert Bartlett. It just got done on the line. He ran a brilliant race. He made most of the running, and it's a shame that I think the only part of the race in which he wasn't in the lead was actually on the line. It was really unfortunate. It was a real shame for Connections. But stellar story, fair play to him. He was a good winner. And on the day, I think he's probably the deserved favourite here on that form. I'd be a little bit cautious about taking Reed and Tommy Wrong after his run the last time. It looked too bad to be true, but I wouldn't think it's the best preparation for a race like this, which looks quite competitive. I was quite interested in Shanna Bob for Nicky Henderson. Again, Chris, you mentioned a few times about waiting to see what Nicky Henderson's horses are running like. This race is on the Friday, so it's probably worth waiting to see how they run on the Thursday first before being too confident in Shanna Bob. But I think the form that he's shown so far is fairly good, and he's quite unexposed still. So there could be plenty more to come from him, and actually like his point-to-point form when he beat Gorgeous Tom, River Voyage. I think there's a couple of decent horses in that point. So I think at the prices rally looks to have been nibbled at quite a bit. It was bigger than 9-2 earlier today. He's probably the way I'm leaning at the moment. But I keep going back to Croke Park as well. I'm not sure if it's a case of that he's not good enough at this level, because he was well beaten in the Laws of Nace the last time. Firefox was disappointing that race too, so maybe it was a case that the Gordon Elliott horses just didn't fire. I think he could be better than he showed on that occasion, and maybe the step up in trip will help him too. I wouldn't give up on him yet. 8-1, I'd maybe like to see him a little bit bigger, maybe double digits if I was going to take him each way, but I think he's definitely interesting, so he'd be one to consider. But at the moment, I'm just leaning towards Shanna Bob.
Okay, I can very much see the case for him there. I really like that win at Cheltenham. There's been quite a few horses come out on him since, and he was on my radar for the Albert Bartlett before he got pulled out. And yeah, we'll know how Henderson's horses are performing by the time he runs. So yeah, I'm not abandoning him just yet. How about you, Paul? Who did you like in this one?
Yeah, I suppose I'd echo what Katie said. I quite like Shanna Bob. You'd be holding fire if you're getting involved to see how the Henderson horses perform on Thursday. If they're performing pretty good, Shanna Bob just mightn't be as big as 9-2, which I'm seeing now. Already a Grade 2 winner, and was given an educational ride on that occasion, was dropped in, stayed on strongly. He's still pretty unexposed. Like, the only doubt here would be he'd be vulnerable to those that might be a slightly more battle hardened, but he's already contested like his point to 15 runners. Last time out at Cheltenham, like, there was 10 runners, and like I said, he was dropped in. Like, if he was ridden handy and maybe Harley got touched by another horse, he'd have slightly more concerned here. But I think if Seven Barrows are firing on Thursday, we'll be rolling in with Shanna Bob on the Friday here.
Okay, a bit of love then for Shanna Bob. So that's all the main races covered for Friday. We're now going to move on to Saturday, Grand National Day. But before we get to the big race itself, we're going to start with the first Grade 1, which is the 155. It's a Turner's Mersey Novices Hurdle. Brighter Days Ahead is your favourite at 7-2. We've then got Coldwell Potter at 4-1. Slade Still next in at 9-2. Billericay Dicky 7s along with Firefox. Reed and Tommy Wrong 8s. And bigger are the rest. Paul, we know that some of these horses are going to be running earlier in the week. We should say we don't have full declarations at the time recording, but if Brighter Days Ahead does run here, do we think she can bounce back to form, get her back in front?
I wouldn't be backing her, Chris. She could bounce back, but I thought she had a very hard race at Cheltenham. She didn't hit the line strong. She ran an absolute cracker to finish second, but for many, she was an Irish banker beforehand, and she just had too hard a race for me. I won't be backing her. Caldwell Potter, it'll be fascinating to see how he lines out here, having his first start for Paul Nicholls. Paul's given him plenty of time to settle in. So a horse with huge ability. He won his last two at Navan and Leopardstown before being snapped up by current connections. Be interesting to see. There's a lot to kind of climatise. Like Paul, no doubt, would have spoken to Gordon and whatnot and got the lowdown from Gordon and Caldwell Potter. Harry will have spoken to Jack and whatnot on the best way to ride him and that. But it might just take a run or two to get to know him. He's a talented individual now, and 4-1 could look a massive price for Caldwell Potter. But for those reasons, I'd like to see him have a run or two for Paul Nicholls and the team just before investing. I've gone with Slade Steele, who was a good winner of the Supreme. Ran a little bit keen or what have you throughout. I thought done very well to find it as much as he did in the closing stages. I just think here 2.5 miles, they should go a nice gallop. It's a sharper 2.5 miles, but we're going to test the conditions. I think if none the worse for the exertions at Cheltenham, I'll be having a little bit of 9-2 on Slade Steele.
Yeah, I'm in pretty much full agreement with what you say. For me, I couldn't have Bright Days Ahead. Caldwell Potter is a horse that got a lot of time for, but hasn't been with Nicholls long. And the fact that they've taken their time with him, coming here, probably just to learn a bit about him, it's probably definitely not going to be his career high, you would say, winning this. So, yeah, I couldn't really back him here. And yeah, Slade Steele was the one I was coming down on. Obviously got the form of Ballyburn. Probably stamina won him the Supreme last time out. Step up and trip will probably suit. Heavy ground wouldn't be an issue. A lot to like about him. So yeah, I was kind of, like I say, along the same lines of thinking as you. How about you, Katie? How did you see this one?
Well, I wouldn't have a final selection yet. I'd just like to see who's actually declared first before I'd really nail my colour to the mast. But I was quite interested in Slade Steele as well. I think on that Supreme form, he's probably the one to beat. I think this trip is his optimum. Soft ground should be fine as well. As I mentioned earlier, we talked about mystical power. I think the stamina really came to the fore in the Supreme on that testing ground. And now this stuff up and trip is going to be no problem. He's proven over 2.5 anyway at Navan, heavy ground at Navan, it can be a real slog. So I think he's got plenty of stamina that can see him through this, but he's also got that nice turn of foot, that bit of speed as well. And I think this is an optimum trip. So yeah, he's the obvious one for me in here. Caldwell Potter is quite interesting as well, as Paul's touched upon already. It might be a bit tough to win first time out for new connections, but I think he's definitely got plenty of talent, and he's shown that he can stay well enough. That win over Predators Gold in the Future Champions Novice Hurdle at Leopardstown over Christmas, I think proved that the step up and trip is going to be no problem for him, because Predators Gold to me is a horse that is best over the intermediate trip, and I'd be very interested in him as well, by the way, if he's declared in this one, because I'm a big fan of his. So I think that Caldwell Potter is if I'm going to go for Predators Gold, then I have to stick with Caldwell Potter as well. So they'd be the two against Slade Steele that I'd be most interested in as well. But I'd probably wait and see what the declarations are like before I make a final decision.
Yeah, kind of in agreement with you. I'll have to wait to see what happens. But yeah, Slade Steele is the one that's on my list. We're now going to move on to the 305, which is the JRL Group Liverpool Hurdle, Grade 1 over 3 and a mile and a half furlong. Tupu is your favourite, 11-4. 4, we then got Fleur Porter next in at 4-1, Cider Burley 6s, Irish Point 13-2, Crambo 8-1, Strong Leader 10s, bigger are the rest. Katie, again, obviously we don't know the full decks, but this could be, again, another interesting race.
Yeah, it looks a very good race. I think it's tricky to make a firm decision now until we know who's really running, because I think a couple of these could go elsewhere and a few will be taken out. Teupu is the obvious place to start with that Stayers Hurdle win. The ground will suit, the trip will suit. There's plenty in his favour. Quite likely race this season, but he does tend to go well fresh. So the fact that he's just run it a few weeks ago may be a bit of a concern. I really like Irish Point as well if he was to run here, but I think he does still have the stamina to prove. I know he ran over just shy of 3 miles in the Jack Bromwich Christmas Hurdle at Leopardstown, but it was quite a slowly run race on that occasion, turned into a bit of a sprint on that heavy ground. They really took their time. Still yet to see that he really stays the 3 miles well enough on this kind of ground in a race that has a stronger pace. I'd be interested, as always, in Monkfish if he was to turn up in here. I think Strong Leader is quite interesting as well for Ollie Murphy. I was impressed with him in the Cleve. He came from quite far back to finish third on that occasion behind Noble Yates Paisley Park. I still think that's quite decent form. Things didn't really go his way, but he ran well and he still looks a horse that's progressing. And he's still quite unexposed over this trip too. I'm not sure if the softer surface is going to be ideal for him, but he's maybe one at a double figure price that I'd be interested in. But tough to make a strong case for any before the final declarations.
Okay, how about you, Paul? Did you have a strong fancy in this one?
Yeah, Chris, this is going to be short and sweet. Teupu, who was touted by a good friend of the pod, Robbie Power. He was held in really high regard in his younger days, and he's fulfilled that potential. Thankfully, he got a good win in the Hatton's Grace at Fairyhouse earlier on in the season, and then he went on and got his deserved success in the Stayers Hurdle at Cheltenham last time out. And I think if he turns up here, none the worse those exertions at Cheltenham. He loved the ground. Hopefully 11-4. If he turns up none the worse, I think 11-4 is a bit of value. About Teupu.
Okay, Teupu is for Paul. I'd just be worried myself if the fact that he had a hard race. I think he's best fresh, so that would be my concern with him. But obviously, if he was to run to that Stayers Hurdles for him, he'd have a favourites chance. I do like Strong Leader though, as Katie touched up upon him. His Aintree record is fantastic. He's only been to the track a couple of times in his career, but he's won one of them. And then last year he came second when he was staying on behind in the pocket. I think the track will suit him a lot better than it would Cheltenham. I know when I was on a preview night with Ollie Murphy, he was tearing his hair out for running him in the Cleve. He just doesn't think Cheltenham is his best track, and the fact he didn't run him at Cheltenham suggests that this has always been the target. For me, I do think he's unexposed over this trip. He's still young, could have a bit more improvement to come. Ollie Murphy's team have been in great form most of the winter, and I do think Strong Leader has a good chance if the ground does dry up. It could dry up maybe a little bit after Thursday, so if it does, I think that would definitely be in his favour, and I could see him running well. So yeah, that's our thoughts then on the Liverpool Hurdle. We're now going to go on to the big one. It's the Grand National. We'll go through the betting of some of the main horses. The favourite is Correct Rambler. Time recording is 11-2. We then got I Am Maximus next in at 8s. Meeting of the Waters 9s. Vanilla 9s. Mr. Incredible 12s. Kitty's Light 14s. Panda Boy 14s. Bigger are the rest. Paul, I'll come to you here first. You can obviously have a few goes. We're not expecting you to find the winner in with one dart, but maybe give us a few that's made your shortlist.
Okay, the one that might just run a decent race, Late Night Pass, course winner. But I just go through his form. I'm not convinced he'll stay the trip. So, but be interesting now if he can get into a rhythm and whatnot. Late Night Pass might be worthy of a small each way bet. Also, the Gopher, nice way to 10 stone 7, was well held in the Ultimate last time out. But if you go back to last season's run in the Ultimate, ran well to finish 4th and was then finished off last season with a good fourth, albeit a well-held fourth in the Bet365 at Sandown. But on his best form, that if he returned to that sort of form, his best price 66 to 1, he could be worth a fiver each way. So that's the Goffer and Late Night Pass on my each way selections. So I find it hard for the win selection. I know he carried 10-5 to win the race last year. I find it very hard to get away from Correc Rambler. He might want as testing conditions as we have at the moment, and I don't think Aintree will let it dry out too much, and that if it does start to dry out kind of come Friday into Saturday, we could get quite gluey really testing conditions, like gluey sticky ground, and that's what we don't want. At least if it's soft and loose, horses will get through it better. But Correc his run in the Gold Cup was very good, as good as that. Like, he was at the top of the hill or halfway down the back. Certainly he was last and kind of having to be humoured into the race. So he done well to get as close as he did. He's a horse that's always held up. Like, when you look at his run in the Gold Cup the last time and then go back to his victory at Aintree last year, I know he had 10-5 on his back. He's 11-5 this year. But like Derek Fox, he's a horse that's always dropped out and usually has to be humoured along, where I think Derek Fox was, he was at pains to try and keep the restraint on him last year, but his jumping, like, he absolutely ate the fences out of it. And he just couldn't hold on to him for any longer. And then got to the elbow, the head went up and whatnot, and you're kind of wondering, will he or won't he get home? He had loads in hand last year, so if he turns up in the same form again and takes the defence, his course form here it counts for so much. So it's very hard, albeit, to come back and win back-to-back Grand Nationals, win 2 alone, but to win back-to-back Grand Nationals is near impossible. But he's a horse that, going into last year's race, I backed him and that, but I wasn't as keen as I was on One for Arthur the year he won it. One for Arthur just struck me as a proper Grand National type horse, whereas Correc Rambler, I didn't think there'd be any in between. I thought he would either absolutely love Aintree or hate it, and he loved it. So I think, despite he's running off 159 here, he's going to carry 11-5. 11-2 is short, but for a win selection, I can't see past Correc Rambler.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same way of thinking. It just reminds me so much this year of Tiger Rolls. Everyone was kind of saying the same thing. He can't win again. He's off a higher mark and all this and that. He's too short. But I don't know. I'm kind of coming along the same lines of thinking. Again, as I said many times on this podcast tonight, I just think that run of the Gold Cup was really good. He hasn't been to war many times this season as well. Pretty lightly campaign. That was his first run since the Betfair Chase back in November. So he's only had the one run since. I think that was even a prep run for this, that they even made it out it was, and they were just kind of there to take their chance and see how he'd get on. Graham maybe could be a little bit concerned, but Lucinda Russell, she knows what she's doing. She's won the race twice in the last 7 years. So for me, I definitely think he's got a standout chance. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea going in 11-2 for a race of this nature, but I do think he has standout claims and definitely is going to go very close, providing he puts in the clear around. So I'm kind of in agreement there with you. How about you, Katie? Correc Rambler, I think he's a horse you want to take on, isn't he?
At the prices, he is, because I just think he's too short in the Grand National. I don't think he should be 11-2, 5-1. But I can definitely see the case for him. He has that crucial course form proven over the distance as well. Him and Noble Yates too. I think with Noble Yates, he's going to have too much weight to carry. I don't think a horse has run off top weight since Red Rum in 74, I think. He's got a really tough task carrying that kind of weight, especially on this testing ground. Correc Rambler as well, he's got a stone extra to carry this year, and I don't think the ground is going to suit him, and he probably had a hard enough race at Cheltenham the last time, although probably did last year as well against Fastest Low in the Ultima. I wouldn't be surprised to see Correc Rambler record back-to-back wins. I just think it is going to be tougher this year for him, much tougher than it was last year. And that's why I think he's just too short for me at 5-1, even 9-2 in places. So I'd rather go for a horse at a bigger price. And I've got a few on my radar before I made a final decision. I do think I Am Maximus is a horse on the up, proven stayer, proven form on soft ground as well. I think he's going to have an excellent chance. Delta work I'll be staying loyal to, and really well in the race a couple of years ago to finish third on ground. That wasn't the suit really. It was good to soft, I think, on that day. I think he's a soft ground horse to be seen to his best. He would have been favourite, I'd say, just slightly over Manila Indo with the ground the way it was in the cross country at Cheltenham last month before it was abandoned. So I think he's a big each way player once again. He's proven that he's able to stay the trip, maybe not as well as some of the others, but he can still stay the trip well enough to make the frame, I think. Vanilla is another obvious one, much better off at the weights with Corrick Lambler this time around, and was staying on really, really strongly last year, so it would be no surprise to see him go on better this time around. I think my main selection is probably going to be Meeting of the Waters for Willie Mullins. He's been put up a fair few pounds by the handicapper, but he's running off 147 again when he was third in the Ultima the last time. I thought he ran well enough on that occasion, and he's just shaped as a really strong stayer. So I think this step up in trip, it could really suit him. He's a sound jumper. This is going to be his 7th start over fences. I think he's a horse that's going to be perfect for this, and hopefully he just enjoys himself, enjoys the fences, and he's got a low enough weight, I think, to be really competitive. I'm on at a bigger price, 25-1 about him. So I've been quite pleased to hear that he's been backed as much as he has in the last few days. He's as short as 8-1 now. It's probably a bit short at that price, but I think he's going to have a real good chance if he enjoys the challenge of it. So he'd probably be my main fancy, but there's definitely a few darts to be thrown there. And a quick mention for Mr. Incredible as well. He was really good at Utoxeter the last time off top weight. I think he could go well. He's quite quirky, but he's off a low enough weight, so he could be one too.
Okay, that's Kate's shortlist then for the Grand National. I'll quickly try and keep mine as short as possible. One interesting stat that I was really baffled about when I came across this a couple of years ago was that I think it was of the last 15 winners of the Grand National, 13 of them had never even jumped over the national fences before. So I don't know what it is, but sometimes maybe horses just having their first taste of it. It's kind of new to them. Maybe some horses have been around it a few times. They're a little bit wise to it, and maybe that's why they're maybe not as enthusiastic as some other horses. So I did feel that was interesting. The only horse that goes against those stats is Tigeron, because he was the only horse that has been round it since. So that actually and one that had the experience over the fences. So that is an interesting angle there. So I've kind of tried to keep horses that kind of profile on side that are having their first experience of it. Iron Maximus is clearly a standout candidate. Looks like he's been campaigned for the race in mind all season. An Irish Grand National winner, won a Grade 1 over fences this term in novice company, beat Vanilla in the Bobby Joe, which has been a good trial for this race in the past. I think he'll have a good chance. Kitty's Light, I have to give a mention to. Again, Christian Williams has had this race in mind for him all season. Has been brought along really nicely. Probably wouldn't want the ground to test him, but I do think he'll go well, and if he's there to do him with a chance with a couple of fences left to go, he's going to stay really well. Scottish National winner, Bet365 Gold Cup winner, plenty of stamina for him, and I think he'll probably relish the test as well. And another horse I'll just give a mention to is Limerick Lace. Mares has been well documented, don't have the best record in the race, but Magic of Light did finish second a couple of years ago in the race, so it's not impossible for mares to run well. Limerick Lace has been on a massive upward curve this season. Cheltenham Festival winner, loves a bit of soft ground, is actually from the family as well, from I Know the Way You're Thinking. The dam Sway, I think her name is, has produced some really good horses, so I think the step up in trip should be no problem for her, and I think she's a live contender, and that's probably the reason as well why Mark Walsh has chosen to get on board. So I do think there are a few there that will run well for you. So that's just a stat I had in mind. Look at horses having their first go over the national fences. Don't know what it is, but it's just an angle that worked well. That angle worked well for me when I went down the Noble Yates route a couple of years ago when I put him up to win at 50-1, and I think most of my shortlists that year were among the same profile. So it's kind of the way I've gone the last couple of years, and I'm hoping it's going to pay off again here. So that's our thoughts then on the Grand National. We just have one more race to cover because they've rejigged the schedule this year. It's the 5 o'clock at Aintree. It's the My Pension Expert Maggle Novices Chase. Founder 50 is your favourite 2-1. We've then got Etalon at 100-30, Hercule de Soy at 6-1, Matata 10s, JLo 12, JPR 12s as well. Bigger are the rest. Katie, I'll come to you here first. Founder 50, he's been knocking on the door the last couple of times. Is he going to get his head in front here?
Yeah, I like Founder 50. I think he's a good horse. Can be quite quirky, but I think he's matured a lot this season. And he's been improving with his jumping as well. He had the tendency to jump a bit to his right, but I thought he was quite good the last time. No match for Gaelic Warrior in the Arkle, but still ran a good race in defeat and finished ahead of Villetta Thomas, reversed that form with him. So yeah, he's probably the way I'd go in this race. I'm a big fan of his. I did see an interesting entry in What Do You Want, who's made the switch from Willie Mullins to Lucinda Russell's. He hasn't been seen for just under a year, but I remember seeing him in the Ballymore a couple of seasons ago. He finished third to his stablemate at the time, Sir Gerhard. I just was really taken by him in the paddock. He's a real professional horse. He was just quiet and relaxed and just went about his business. A really nice looking type, and I think more has probably been expected from him. This is probably a big ask if he is declared on his first start for New Connections after a layoff, but I'd definitely be interested in seeing how he gets on and how he'll progress now for his new yard.
Okay, what do you want tonight then? Who's recently joined Lucinda Russell from Katie? How about you, Paul? Who did you like in the last Grade 1 we're previewing?
Yeah, probably at the minute, looking at the entries, not a race I'd be getting involved too heavily in. But the one I've gone with is Etalon, who's won his last 3. I thought he was pretty impressive at Sandown last time out. This is another big jump in grade, but I think, like I said earlier on, a couple of races that we covered earlier on in the show, not the strongest Grade 1 contest here. And I think Etalon, best price 100-30, could cap off a good meeting for the Skelton team.
Yeah, they definitely look to have a lot of good chances. One horse I'll just keep an eye on is Jello for Venetia Williams. Is a horse that has been campaigned recently over 2.5 miles, but I think dropping back down to 2 wouldn't be a bad decision. He beat Master Chewy here on his seasonal debut over this course and distance. Got some good novice form in the bag. Finished 3rd last time out in the Turners behind Grey Dawning and Ginny's Destiny last time out. Probably just didn't get home and see out the trip as well as some of the others that day. I think if Grey Dawning does win on Thursday, I could see him being a lot shorter price than his current odds of 12-1. So yeah, he's definitely a horse I've got my eye on for this race, but not particularly strong opinion on him at the time of recording. So that's it then for the main races. I'll just go around everyone to see if they have any other fancies. Paul, I'll come to you first. Is there anything else you want to mention over the 3 days? Anything in the handicap you saw or any of the bumpers?
There's 2 I'm going to mention, both over the Grand National course. In the Fox Hunters, I would be interested to see how Lieutenant Rocco gets on. Was 2nd and 3rd on his last couple of starts. Was as big as 33-1 when I was looking at this race last night. Now best price at 25-1. Has a top jock in Will Biddick on board. And Will had a good price, nice price each way selection at the Cheltenham Festival. Finished 2nd, I think, with Will on. I know it was well beaten by the McManus own runners and Derek O'Connor, but well outrun ran his odds, and I think Lieutenant Rocco could well be the same. Will has a good, tremendous record. He's a good record over these fences without winning. He has won over the fences, but even on horses that he hasn't won on, he's always been there or thereabouts, and I think that's crucial around Aintree. And moving on to Friday, Fantastic Lady pulled up at Doncaster when last seen. She did unseat in this race in 2022. She deposited James Bowen at the first fence, but she's had 2 good runs since then. She finished second in this race last year. She unseated in 2022. She was second in this race last year, and then was fifth in the Grand Sefton. Was only beaten about 6 lengths by the winner. So the fences aren't as stiff a test as what the once were, but they do still take a bit of getting and getting to know. Like, some horses take to them, some horses won't take to them. So Fantastic Lady, she's best price at 16 to 1. I think you could have a fun bet on Fantastic Lady in the 4:05, the top on chase on Friday.
Okay, there are a couple to watch then from Paul over the national fences. How about UKT? Surely Bill Baxter's made your shortlist.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go for a couple in the same races as Paul has mentioned. I go with the first one in the Fox Hunters. I'm quite interested in Romeo Magico for Emmett Mullins. Double figure price. I think he's quite unexposed, hasn't had many runs. So I think he could definitely go well. But probably my nap of the meeting is going to be in the top one when it is Bill Baxter. Can definitely see the case for Fantastic Lady, who was a good second to him last year. But I've been watching Bill Baxter all season, and I just love the horse. He's a gorgeous grey. I kind of kept away from him because I've been just hoping to see his mark drop a little bit, and he's only now a pound higher than when he was winning this race last year. So I think he's had a decent season. He hasn't been running too badly in these really competitive handicaps. But I think the return to Aintree and these fences, and that he's only a pound higher than he was last year, I think he's going to have a great chance. And he's been really well back this week as well. He was as big as 12 to 1 earlier in the week or around last week, and he's 5 to 1 now. He's 4 to 1 in places. Maybe a little bit short. I remember putting him up last year at 30 to 1 when he was a bit overlooked. But I'd be happy enough to stick with him. I think he's going to love this. And he's wearing first-time cheek pieces as well, which is quite interesting. But I think he could run a big race. So Bill Baxter's going to be my nap of the meeting.
Okay, staying loyal with Bill Baxter to repeat his success in the Topham once again. I got a couple. They're for the Friday races. The first one is in the handicap hurdle, the 220. Liked 2 in this race, making headway for Ollie Greenhill and Josh Guerrero, who's been running in some really good races this season, 4 connections, over 2 miles. He's now stepping up in trip to 2.5 miles, which I think will really suit him. He's actually a point-to-point winner. And I know the connections, I always thought he would do better stepping up in trip. He ran a good 4th last time out behind Go Dante in the Imperial Cup. And he was rallying up closing stages. He just didn't have the gears to go with the leaders that day. But I still think it wasn't a bad run. Cheek pieces go on first time. He's been kept away from Cheltenham for this race. I think he can go really well. So he's definitely one I'll be keeping on my short list. And the other one in that race was Theorish Operator for Lucinda Russell. She has a terrific record at this meeting. This horse actually beat Brewing Up a Storm last time we saw him at Kelso. I think it was actually quite a good race for the grade. He is up £5, but he's a horse that's still on an upward curve, and I still think he might not be done with yet. And then the other horse I'll give a mention to runs in the top, bit of a cliff horse of mine. That's Frankie de Burley for Peter Bowen, who's got an excellent record in the top, and I think he's won it on 5 occasions, especially with a couple of runners in the last few years, like Sir Mac Totti has won this race for him. This horse, Frankie de Burley, actually did run in the race a few years ago, back in 2022, when he was actually off a £2 higher mark. So he is now on a good mark, I think, of 134. I think this race has been at the forefront of his campaign for this season. He ran a good race to be second in the cross-country race at Cheltenham. I kind of like that angle. I like horses that have done well over the cross-country fences coming to Cheltenham. I just think it always serves him in good stead. I think he's a horse that's, like I say, on a good mark. He's a big price. He's 33 to 1 with a few firms, so I could definitely see him going well each way for a trainer that has a good record in this race. So they're just a couple I'll be keeping on side throughout the week at Aintree. But thanks again to Paul and Katie for giving up their time. Hopefully we found you some winners at Aintree this week. Please remember to subscribe to us on all the major podcast platforms. You can follow us as well on social media, on Twitter and Instagram. Please remember to gamble responsibly, and we'll be seeing you again soon.